How are we doing on quorum?
We have a total of 9 members in attendance at the moment.
All right, so we'll need to hold on for, see if we can get a few more.
Hi, it's Mike Hodge.
We have a quorum, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you very much. So let's start off with item number 2. That is approval of the minutes. Do I have someone that wants to make a motion to approve or identify any changes?
Bob Day recommends approval.
Mike Hodge, second.
All in opposition. Let's go. Is there anyone in opposition to approval of the minutes? Hearing none, we'll have it all approved and we'll go to item number 3. Mr. Collins, this is you on the Transportation Improvement Program.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. So this is just bringing back the item from the previous TAG meeting. This is the fall amendment cycle. It's our regularly scheduled opportunity where we make changes to the Regional Transportation Plan and Transportation Improvement Program. So not much has changed as far as the information from the last presentation. We are currently doing community outreach. We had a public hearing and a public outreach engagement opportunity before the policy board meeting 2 weeks ago or last week, I can't remember at this point. And then we also went out to Lockhart to take comments. We were at the library on the 13th, I believe. So it's been to the policy board. We're bringing it here today to ask for a recommendation from the Technical Advisory Committee, and then we're going to take it back to the policy board on the 14th for a potential adoption. On the next slide, you'll see the amendments. They're all pretty straightforward. We do have a couple of rollover projects. FM 973 and SH 95 are rolling over from a previous TIP. And then we've got a new project, which is the Demand Response Operations and Maintenance Facility that Cap Metro will be implementing. They did receive a grant from FTA for approximately $76 million. That will be a new project to the TIP. And then we've also got some projects in Caldwell County, FM 2720. And those were added to the UTP and have committed Category 12 funding as well. So that really concludes the presentation. I do know one of the things is that we are still in the middle of public comments. We have received a few comments, anything significant really related to these projects. But as far as this TAC recommendation goes, we're asking for a technical recommendation on the process itself. I will say that when we put together the public outreach, community outreach report that goes to the policy board, even though we haven't finished the outreach component of this process, we'll send out that outreach report to the TAC. If you have any comments, we'll be more than happy to provide those to the policy board as well. But with that conclusion, I'll be requesting that the TAC make a recommendation to the policy board regarding these amendments. Thank you.
All right, I think y'all discussed this at the last meeting, but does anyone have any questions? Bob?
Thank you. Just a quick question. If category 12 is still commission strategic priority, given that Micron is going to New York rather than Lockhart, are the category 12 funds still going to construct 2720, whatever the road number was?
That's a good question, Bob, and the short answer to that is I don't know. Was somebody else about to jump on?
Yeah, I was just gonna mention, Bob, we're still developing those corridors and, they're not gonna be funded until a development deal is made. Not to say that if it's not Micron, it might be somebody else, but we're continuing, developing those corridors, but the money isn't, really obligated to the project until a development deal comes forward.
Okay, I guess my point was whether Micron comes or not, it is an important regional project, I think, and that we should not turn our back on Caldwell County just because Micron went away.
We're still working on it. We have, I mean, it's in the UTP, so we can work on it, and we
Yeah.
have a statewide develop authority for the rest. So we're,
Okay.
we're working on them. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Anybody else? All right, seeing no one's hand up, do I have a motion for approval to recommend?
This is Mike Hodge. I'll make the approval recommend to the policy board.
Anybody have a second?
Good, I'll second.
All right, thanks, Mike. Tom? All right, anyone opposed to the recommendation of approval? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to item number 4. This is it, all right, we're on 4, right? Okay, Jeff Kaufman on the Regional State of Safety Report.
Good afternoon. I'm Jeff Kaufman with the Texas A&M Transportation Institute. I'm here to report on the state of safety for the CAMPO region. This report looks at the last 10 years of crash data, which was collected from regional law enforcement agencies. These are for crashes that are any injuries, any fatalities, and any incidents where there's at least $1,000 worth of damage. For the sake of brevity, I'm going to be providing a regional overview, but the report that was produced looks at 16 different safety focus areas that impact the region. This information ideally can be used to help direct safety projects for the region in the future. Next slide. To start, regionally crashes have trended upward over the 10-year period, with 2019 being our high point. COVID did contribute to a drop in crashes in 2020 and 21, partially due to a drop in overall vehicle traffic during the shutdown. However, it appears that the region is trending back upwards in terms of crashes. As of September 30th of this year, there were nearly 26,000 incidents compared to nearly 23,000 at the same time in 2021. Next slide. This following slide reflects regional crash rate, which is expressed in crashes per 100 million vehicle miles traveled annually. While crash rate has increased through 2016, 2017, the rate has actually been on the decline since then, even through COVID, when vehicle travel has decreased. A positive note for the region that the region's crash rate has been consistently lower than the state's rate as a whole. Having looked at several other metro areas, Fort Worth, Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, you're quite a bit lower than them as well. So I wish you all congratulations on that. Next slide. Looking at regional fatalities have been increasing throughout the last 10 years. up nearly 50% in 2021 compared to 2012. Contrary to the drop in crashes during COVID in the last 2 years, the last 2 years recorded the highest level of regional fatalities for the period. And this is something that has been seen throughout the state in general. Unfortunately, looking at the last 9 months, again, compared to this time 2021, it looks like in 2022, you will surpass last year's fatalities. Next slide. In regards to serious injuries, annual injury totals have fluctuated throughout this 10-year period. 2020 and 2021 were actually interesting looking at the previous couple of slides. 2020 had the lowest number of fatalities throughout the 10-year period, but 2021 had the highest number of serious injuries throughout this period. And 2021 has the highest number of serious injuries for the period. I don't know why this is. However, again, for next year, it looks like the region will be surpassing 2021's in terms of the number of serious injuries. Next slide, please. Now, this following graph, it combines bicycle and pedestrian fatalities and serious injuries. This combination is more to reflect the federal performance measure, which calls for the reduction in bicycle and pedestrian fatalities and serious injuries combined. Bicycle and pedestrian fatalities are pretty much 1 out of every 5 regional traffic deaths. And it's despite being only about 2.6% of all crashes. In terms of the fatality split, 90% of these fatalities are pedestrians, with 10% being bicyclists. For serious injuries, it's 70% pedestrians, 30% bicyclists. Unfortunately, due to previous slides, it's not just that 2022 is going to surpass 2021. In terms of serious injuries, you have already surpassed the total for 2021. Next slide. As mentioned at the beginning of the report, this report looks at 16 different focus areas that play a role in traffic safety. I have a list that's sorted by the percent of all crashes. Distraction is the highest contributing factor in regards to crashes in terms of all crashes in the region. However, in terms of the biggest contributing factor of fatalities and serious injuries, that would be road departures, which are predominantly single vehicles that run off the road, crashing into trees, lampposts, signs, etc. I have 5 different elements highlighted: alcohol, speeding, motorcycles, unrestrained passengers, and pedestrians. I call these out because they are a relatively low percentage of all the crashes in the region. However, they have a disproportionate level of fatalities. So in terms of reducing fatalities, these are perhaps, there are a few of them, but these are some heavy hitters for the region. Last slide, please. So in addition to the report, 2 additional assessments were conducted, and both of the reports provide details in terms of how these assessments were conducted. The first assessment is a proposed high injury network. It's something similar to what various regions are doing this across the country. I know the city of Houston, Austin has done this as well. What it does is this assessment is looking at 5 years of fatality and injury crash data, along with their respective rates, and the data have identified roads of concern throughout the area. The second assessment is an intersection assessment, which looks at intersections with high levels of crashes, including the level of fatalities, serious, not serious injuries, and also calls out specifically bicycle and pedestrian injuries in order to help round out in terms of the performance measures. So all 3 together is essentially the state of safety report, the update for the region. With that, I will take any questions.
All right, anybody have any questions? I see Ed Collins, your hand's raised.
Yes, I was wondering if there might be a presentation at some point next year to talk about what the region is trying to do with, I guess, Vision Zero and how we're moving forward. I mean, this information is good, but to have it reported, but how are we using this information to target different programs or projects to help reduce the number of fatalities and injuries? Also, I'd be curious also with turnover of fleet, if you want to call it that, with vehicles that are having all the different safety type advances, like use of radar to keep you in your lane and keep you from running into the back of cars. I have all my vehicles are older, so I don't have any of those features. But I've driven some rental cars, and I find those helpful for me when I'm traveling in an area that I'm not familiar with, and in traveling. But just wondering, what type of impact would the fleet turnover as we get more vehicles that have those features as those get onto the road?
And I would be interested to see that myself. In terms of the crash reports that are out there, they don't necessarily take into account that specificity of that specific data. I know there are some, we could theoretically probably look at some of the, the types of vehicles that are in crashes, but I can't tell necessarily if they are, whether or not they have those technologies. I mean, I have a car that I could have gotten it with a lot of those safety features. I cheaped out and got without, and hope my wits will get me through it. But that is an excellent question to see if that that does play a role, because technology is going to be a big part in terms of improving safety.
And Chad, do you want to talk a little bit about how this data will help move forward with a safety action plan?
Laura, if you don't mind, I'll.
Yes. There. Go ahead, Darryl.
All right, thanks, Chad. Just wanted to let Ed answer the first part of your question. Next year, for the January TAC meeting, we'll be bringing to the TAC and the board a draft regional safety plan for y'all to review and adopt. And that'll have what we do is where we take the data from this report and combine it with strategies about how to address some of these issues. So again, we're hoping to bring that. It's still going through the editing process, and we're hoping to bring that to y'all at the January TAC meeting for information.
Okay, thank you. All right, we've got a couple of hands up. I'm going to go in order. Bob, you're next.
Thank you. Couple quick questions. First, refresh my memory. Is the CAMPO goal for bike ped accidents a number, or is it a rate based on population?
If I may, in terms of what's being proposed, I believe CAMPO has taken on the TxDOT's performance measure, the Road to Zero, where the goals are to reduce fatalities and injuries by 50% by 2035 and to zero by 2050. So those would fall into, if that is how CAMPO is proceeding with that, that would be apportioned appropriately for both of those categories.
So it's a hard number. It's not a rate based on population.
No.
Okay.
Next, fatality. Well, actually, if I might clarify, I believe it's not specifically for bicycle and pedestrians. It's a hard number. In terms of rates, for fatality rate, overall fatality rates and overall serious injury rates. There is a reduction in rates as well. I've recommended, an assigned rate that kind of mimics the proposed drop in related fatalities and serious injuries for those two periods, for those 2 years. But ideally, in the end, it would be 0.
Yes, I understand that. I think it would be informative to have one that is, as you do accidents per vehicle mile traveled or whatever the number used to divide by 4 on the roadway part, just as an indicator, it might be interesting to see over time if that rate is going up and down based on population at all, just out of curiosity. Second question is, do you have the accident data in an Excel spreadsheet by county, by roadway, with the different criteria there that we could look at and analyze?
Yes. Each location, well, for the two, if you're talking about the slide that's currently up, yes, I have one. It's a rather large spreadsheet, but I can provide that. It's currently in access and or
Yeah, I think at least I would like it if you could break it out by county, by roadway, all the accidents, the locations and the types and all that, so that we could easily review the data. I would imagine it's the cities may like to have that broken out that way also. That might, at least for Williamson County, we'd sure like to have that. And I would imagine there'd be other counties and cities that might like to take a look at that also and take advantage of your fine work. Thank you.
I will put that together and get that over to Nirav. It's just needs to be formatted accordingly. One of the things I tried to do in this process also was try to fix errors in the entry of the data, because sometimes there's a lot of events that may not be caught due to misspellings or misnumbering. So I tried to go through and normalize certain road names, because even some road names have several names to it. So, but I will work with Nirav and get that data to him.
Okay. Tom, I know you had your hand up, but you've taken it down. Did you get your question?
Yeah, I did. Bob kind of touched on one of them. I was hoping to get the source of the accidents, and if there's an intersection in Cedar Park that jumps out, which is circled there, then I was curious to know is causation, if there's trends or something we could look at. And would this data be available? This is a CAMPO question, I guess, in your upcoming dashboard. Is there a breakdown through Chris that you could get causation on accidents in the dashboard? Do you know?
Yes, Tom. The short answer is yes. We'll have it broken down by. Once we have it published, we're on the 99-yard line. We're on the 1-yard line to get that done.
Perfect.
So you'll have it by location. Like Jeff said, roadway is hard because there are a lot of variations about how the roadway is actually entered into the form itself, or there's misspellings, or it's incorrect. But for those data that we do have locations for, or lat longs, you have location for that, and then you have related factors. So was speed a factor, alcohol, lane departures, what were the weather conditions like, the age of the driver at fault. So a lot of that will be available when the dashboard goes live.
Thank you.
And what I will do is also provide a guide. It's a lookup table where you see where all the codes are. It's a rather obnoxious lookup table. I apologize for that. We'll blame TxDOT. They put it together. But it has all the data that you can tie everything, because it's actually, if I provide you everything, it's about 3 or 4 spreadsheets worth of data. But let me work with Nirav to get it to y'all in the best format that would be useful.
Okay, Amy.
Hi, this is Amy with Bastrop County. I've agree with Bob. I would also really appreciate being able to look through these spreadsheets if they could be made available. I also had a question about the rate itself and if maybe there would be a less standardized version of that rate that could be calculated. Because as I recall for the SS4A application, we were going off of a fatality rate using the population rather than vehicle miles traveled. And by that metric, Bastrop County had the highest fatality rate in the region, unfortunately. And I know that just looking at this map, we have identified an intersection with 71 and 95 as being a particularly dangerous intersection, and it absolutely is, but it is not the only dangerous intersection in the county. And I'm just wondering if using a different metric, aside from per 100 million VMT, would reflect those intersections, at least in my county.
Hey, Amy, this is Will Liska, Regional Planning Manager for CAMPO. Thank you for your comment. It's a very good point. I think, and I'll let Jeff and Neera finish this thought for me. But my thought here is that the rate that was used for the work that you're seeing right here on the screen was chosen because this is the rate that TxDOT uses to analyze safety on a segment and intersection level statewide. So it's where we actually have a point of statewide comparison. The rates that were used for the SS4A calculation were developed by USDOT to make sure that they were taking into account population as part of their criteria. So that's why you might see a little bit of difference between what's presented here and what was in that application for SS4A.
And to kind of clarify a couple things. One, the intersection assessment does not take rates into consideration. And please forgive me because actually this is merely a representative graphic, what you see here. Because if I put in all of the intersections in question, it would just be a bunch of dots. But no, there's a list of intersections. There's far more than those. What I see, maybe maybe one in Bastrop. There will be more than one in Bastrop. There's the actual document should have a list, and the list that is attached to the report for the regional intersection assessment specifically only goes down to intersections where I've identified 30 crashes over a 5-year period for one every other month over the 5-year period. I mean, I could take it all the way down to one, but I thought that in order to kind of identify those locations that have a history of a problem, so to speak, I wanted to kind of use that as my cutoff. So yeah, please look at this. While the map you see of the high injury network is the map that will be in the report, what you see for the intersections, it's just a graphic representation.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, last but not least, Kathy.
Hi, I just wanted to second everything everybody said about getting the data, and was hoping that we could also get the shape files, at least for the high injury network, given that the intersection is just a picture, so to speak. Would that be possible?
I could do that, and I think one of the other things, and this is something that I'd be more than happy to work with Neera on. I'm not sure how often you all work with crash data, but I'd be more than happy to actually put on a workshop for all in terms of using it and getting it, and how to manipulate it for your own good. But yes, I could provide that information. I could provide a shapefile for you.
Great, thank you. I think the workshop sounds like a good idea too.
Jeff, this is Ashby. Go ahead and add the workshop to your list.
My pleasure, sir. Will you be providing
Thank you.
donuts?
I know that Ashby allowed Jeff to come down to San Marcos. It's been, gosh, quite a few years ago now, maybe 5, and helped us look at the CRIS data then. And it's a beast to do, but it's certainly really helpful and a little overwhelming. We probably lost all our knowledge and would benefit again from the workshop. So anyway, Jeff is a great resource to us. Thanks, Ashby, for providing it to us. Anybody else?
I do. Late hand. This is Cole. I do have a question as far as what the next steps are for the regional safety action plan effort and how this relates or does not relate.
Hi, Cole. This is Will. Good question. And I kind of view this as a good first step in some of the regional aspects of the regional safety action plan that we presented on earlier this year, the idea behind it, and the application that we ultimately submitted to USDOT for SS4A. We're still waiting to hear back, obviously, from USDOT since we just submitted that application in September. But we think that this provides a good technical background for some of that work. But of course, the way that SS4A Regional Action Plan study was scoped, it will get down to a finer level of detail beyond just the high injury network that you see right there on the screen. As well as it would involve a lot more public and stakeholder outreach.
Also, Cole, a lot of the data that's generated for this report is used all by CAMPO staff, but also by other local governments when it comes time to submit projects for potential inclusion and funding allocation in the TIP. So if you recall, I forget what the exact amount of the score for project is for safety. I want to say it's 40 points.
Maybe it's the cost benefit plus the indicators.
So a significant portion of the score is predicated on safety. So that does feed into that as well.
Okay. Anyone else? All right. Thank you very much, Jeff.
Thank you all for having me, and I hope 2023 is a better year for y'all.
A safer year. And we look forward to your workshop.
I look forward to giving it. Thank you all. Do take care.
All right. Okay, moving to item 5, update on corridor readiness segment prioritization efforts. Man, that's a long title there.
Yep. Thank you, Lori. We have not had a second meeting yet of the ad hoc subcommittee for this program, so we don't have too much to update the committee on there, but there have been some other activities going on in relation to this that our GC team here, Eric and Kevin, are going to provide some information on that.
All right, thanks, Chad. So last month we informed the TAC that TxDOT would be funding studies for FM 734, Palmer, and also one segment of FM 973. There's a scoping meeting scheduled with TxDOT this Thursday to start the process for scoping the 734 project. So that's good progress. And then we're also working with TxDOT to start surveys for all the corridors through the use of some of their existing survey contract capacity. Very early stages of that discussion process, but we'll be coordinating with them and probably local governments as well as those surveys get kicked off. Kevin, you want to go ahead with the letter update?
Sure. Regarding the subcommittee, we've been working with them since the last meeting, shared a lot of information with them, but one of the requests we had were to obtain some information from the local government. So we've prepared a draft document for right-of-way preservation commitment that we've shared with the subcommittee members, and we're waiting feedback on that. So That way, those members can then get that information out to the other local governments within the region, starting sometime later this week, to obtain that information regarding how a local government would go about preserving right-of-way. That way, we can analyze that in conjunction with the prioritization of each of these segments. So looking to continue that this week and progress that moving forward. So there should be some more information shared with mostly the TAC committee here in the next coming week. And that's it from that standpoint.
Yep. That's all I have for that item. If there's any questions.
Yeah, this is Bob. Let me ask that the subcommittee, if you can, stick around on this line after the CAMPO meeting, and we'll just talk for a minute in the appropriate staff.
Okay, anybody else? All right, well then, it sounds like we finished with item number 5, and to provide some extra time for the folks on the Corridors Committee, do I have a motion for, why do I always forget this word? Adjournment, sorry. I make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Ed Collins, second.
All right. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Here.